It's getting to that point in the MLB regular season where the accolades and awards frontrunners are starting to shape up. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani is at the lead for the American League MVP, and Ronald Acuna has had a pretty large head start on the National League MVP, although people are considering Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson entering that fold as a discussion to be had. It's that point in the season where the guys who are at the top of these lists are either propelling themselves even further up those voting lists or falling out of the top 5 consideration likely throughout the next couple of weeks. In 2022, one of the Mariners' starting pitchers had a phenomenal month of August. In fact, every single starting pitcher in the month of August in 2022 for the Mariners had a phenomenal month. But the one I'm highlighting today is George Kirby. Last year in August, George Kirby went 4-0 across 5 starts. He had a 2.15 ERA over 29 1/3 innings pitched, and he had a strikeout to walk ratio of 11.33. So he struck out, 33 batters and he walked 3, essentially. I think it was 34-3, but you get the point. That's the ratio there. George Kirby had a phenomenal 2022, and that month of August likely propelled him towards an almost top 5 finish in Rookie of the Year with a stacked AL Rookie of the Year class. So far in August in 2023, George Kirby has been just as good, if not better, than that line from 2022. It's only through 2 starts, and one is against the Los Angeles Angels and the second against Baltimore. He's got 3 more starts coming up, one against the Royals, one against probably the White Sox, and the final one against the Oakland Athletics. Now, through 16 innings pitched in the month of August, George Kirby has a .56 ERA. He's only given up 6 hits, 1 earned run, and he's walked 0 batters, and he's struck out 12. George Kirby has been dominant in the month of August. That start in which he would end up not getting credit for a win, he'd get a no decision because the Mariners lost 1-0 in extra innings to the Baltimore Orioles. It was the highest game score pitched against Baltimore all year. The best team in the American League, George Kirby, had a game score of 88. Now, if you don't know what game score is, it is a very famous sabermetric developed by Bill James, but you start at a base score of 50 points and you earn 1 point for each out recorded, essentially 3 outs per inning, and then you get an additional 2 points for each inning completed after the 4th. You add a point for a strikeout, and there are some subtractions to be had here, but George Kirby really did not have that many in this start against Baltimore. Looking at other starts made against Baltimore this year, you've got an 87 from Corbin Burnes in which he struck out 9. Mitch Keller had an 82 game score in which he struck out 13. What makes George Kirby so impressive is that he went 9 innings complete and he only struck out 7 batters. It's not great for his strikeouts were 9, but he didn't walk anybody in this start. However, his game score, it shows how dominant he was by limiting runners and limiting damage, essentially, and traffic on the bases. He only gave up 3 hits, but he only had 7 strikeouts. So his game score is all that more impressive because he didn't do it with the inflated strikeout numbers. And George Kirby, he is known to be a pitch to contact guy. He pounds the zone more than anybody else, and that is why he's leading the league in his strikeout to walks ratio, his overall walks per 9. He leads the league in whip. George Kirby, he does not want runners to get on base. He is obsessed with throwing strikes, and he does not want to walk any batters. He's only got a total of 14 walks on the season this year through 144 2/3 innings. George Kirby has an insane amount of control when it comes to his pitches. Now, how is this making him underrated? Well, his stuff isn't jumping off the page at you, right? He's not the high strikeout guy like Spencer Strider is in the National League, or even Kevin Gossman, who is leading the American League in strikeouts. His ERA plus is only 130. It's not great like Nathan Eovaldi's at 162. 130 is, 30 points better than average, but it's not that overwhelmingly good where you're like, oh, he's in line to be contending for a Cy Young. If you guys want George Kirby to win the Cy Young, make sure you like and subscribe. What I believe is George Kirby's biggest asset, aside from his control, is his consistency. He does have the highest quality start percentage among qualified pitchers in the American League at 74%, so 17 out of his 23 starts have been quality starts. And taking a look at the rest of his month of August, you've got teams like the Royals. Yes, they played good ball against the Mariners up until this point.
Now, about that start against Kansas City, it wasn't abundantly great for George Kirby. He went 5 innings of 1-run ball, but then ran into trouble in the 6th, ended up giving up 8 hits and 4 earned, only striking out 2. His ERA is 3.23, so it's not terrible, but he's going to have to definitely bounce back a bit better in the final 2 starts of August to really hammer it home.
You've got teams like the White Sox and the Athletics likely being his following starts after this. There's no reason in my mind that George Kirby cannot follow up his stellar month of August from 2022 with an even better one in 2023, because he has evolved his game over the last calendar year to become an even better pitcher than he already was. He currently sits third in Fangraphs WAR among starting pitchers. He's at 3.6, and according to B-WAR, he's got a 3.1, which is still top 5 in terms of pitching WAR. George Kirby should be able to take it to these lower level competition teams like the Royals, White Sox, and Athletics to continue his dominance in the month of August. So far throughout his career, he's holding batters to a 217 batting average and a 509 OPS in the month of August. For an OPS standard, that's somewhere in between Colton Wong and Nick Allen's OPS on the 2023 season. That means he makes every single batter look like Colton Wong is at the plate. In a vacuum, I know that's not how aggregate stats work, because, you know, there's guys that are going to hit the ball and there's guys that aren't. But you look at the averages and that's what they tell you. George Kirby is making guys look silly with his absolute dominance of the zone. His 99-mile-an-hour fastball, by the way, has insane ride. He's got a great sinker. He's got a great breaking ball. George Kirby, he's got control over all of his pitches all of the time. So that being said, where does he stand in terms of Cy Young voting right now? I'd probably have him either at 3rd or 4th. Garrett Cole is likely the frontrunner for the American League Cy Young right now. He is single-handedly keeping the New York Yankees pitching staff afloat. He leads the league in innings pitched. He's got the highest baseball reference WAR, so you give the nod to Cole there. At number 2, I've got Nate Eovaldi. He is hurt. He'll probably still make around 25 starts should he come back by the end of the month, early September. For Texas, he currently leads the league in winning percentage, and like I mentioned earlier, ERA+. Guys have won this award with 25 starts before, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen again if he continued his dominance. He's also thrown 2 complete games, so Nathan Eovaldi, really good year for Texas. 3rd, I'm probably leaning Sonny Gray for the Minnesota Twins. He, I think, is 2nd in Fangraphs WAR for starting pitchers at this time, and he's top 5 in ERA+, according to Baseball Reference. Sonny Gray has been instrumental to the Minnesota Twins' success in 2023 and is helping them lead the division. Kirby, I would have as 4th right now. Some of his stuff doesn't jump off the page aside from his control. I think if he has 3 more great starts in August, all back to back to back, it's going to propel him into the spotlight even more than he already's got on himself. He was an all-star this year. He definitely deserved that nod. If he comes out and dominates the next 3 opponents, you will definitely start seeing the conversation happen a bit more that George Kirby could be a Cy Young Award winner this year. Guys that are just on the outside looking in from this list, they've been amazing this year, but Kevin Gausman, Framber Valdez, Zach Eflin, maybe even like Tanner Bibby for the Guardians. Bunch of guys are having phenomenal years. Gossman's leading the league in strikeouts. He's leading the Toronto Blue Jays to a playoff position right now. He's probably shooting for a sub-3 ERA. Framber, you know, he threw a no-hitter. He is the staple of that Astros rotation. Now that they've got Verlander back, maybe a little bit of the pressure's off of him. He can kind of go back into his zone. But George Kirby, it's hard to argue against the tapes here because he is that dominant in the zone. He does not let guys get ahead of him. And if you look at comparisons here for some of these stats, George Kirby has given up the most hits by and large because of the way he stays in the zone, but his whip is so low. Walks and hits per innings pitched, it's 1.002, almost less than 1. If you got a 0.9 something whip as a starting pitcher, you are an elite level pitcher. And what is so elite about George Kirby is his control, is his ability to limit walks. And that's the biggest difference for me. If George Kirby can come out and have some big strikeout games where he goes for 10 plus, but still doesn't allow runners on and goes 7 scoreless, you're going to see that ERA start creeping down closer to the sub-3. It's going to start looking like these stats are lining up for George Kirby to be a Cy Young Award winner, and that conversation is going to be had more and more throughout his career because he has got a long tenure ahead of him as a Seattle Mariner. And now a guy that we've also got for a long time here in Seattle is Dom Canzone, a guy that we just picked up in the trade deadline from Arizona. Check out this video that Colton made comparing him to a former Mariners outfielder that we traded for as well from Arizona. Thank you guys for watching this one, and go Mariners.